What does it really take to build a thriving school community? One where students, staff, and families all feel connected, inspired, and proud to belong. I'm Dr. Chris Tranberg, proud superintendent of the Branford Public Schools, and this is Hive Mind Headlines, a podcast all about the people and ideas shaping Branford's next chapter. For this inaugural episode, I'm thrilled to welcome our 3 student representatives to the Board of Education, Juliana Barros, Lillian Rank, and Chase Barone. Each month, Juliana, Lillian, and Chase attend our Board of Education meetings to share updates from Branford High School, everything from student activities and accomplishments to topics that matter most to their peers. They also lend their voice to the district-wide discussions, offering valuable student perspectives on everything from upcoming construction projects to the future of electrification of our bus fleet to ways we can expand opportunities for students at BHS. I invited these 3 students to join me for this first episode to explore a big and important topic: leadership. Together, we'll dig into what leadership means to them, who has inspired them along the way, and how they believe young people can help shape a better future for our schools and community. So let's get the conversation started. All right, so welcome to the first episode of Hive Mind Headlines, the podcast. I'm thrilled you're all here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And to get started, since I gave you a little bit of homework of just some things to think about leadership and what leaders are important to you. So when you hear the word leader, is there a particular person that comes to mind as someone who embodies leadership? Anyone want to take that one to start us off?
I'll take it. That's fine. Hi, I'm Lillian, so people have a name to my voice. When I think of a leader, it's probably the teachers at the school. I found a love through healthcare. I take a lot of science, like health anatomy related classes. And all the teachers that I've had over the past 2 years, 3 years, taking these types of classes, knowing I want to go into that industry, they've all been very helpful, very accepting. When I think of people who embody leadership, I definitely think of them. I can go next. Hi, everyone. I'm Juliana. When I think of the word leadership, I often think of my mother, watching her, go through life and open many businesses and just the way she works and just like trying to follow in her footsteps definitely like embodies leadership throughout every aspect of my life.
Yeah. Hi, my name's Chase. A person that I think would be a leader, especially in my life, was my swim coach. So I've known him since I was in 2nd grade. So it's been a long relationship because he was my sister's swim coach for when she was in high school. And ever since I started swimming, we're co-opted with Madison Daniel Hand, it's a very great thing. It's like a big family. He's always been someone that made sure to look out for everyone on the team and just make sure that everyone's putting their best effort. So I think for leadership for me is just making sure that everyone's kind of putting in the effort and that everyone feels like heard.
That's great. I love that you all had like a personal connection to the leader that you talked about. I was almost thinking you were going to look to this big influential person in the world, and you all went. We have a teacher, we have mom, so we have these local people. So I think let's have our own little norm that as long as we're speaking positively about a leader, I think we can give them a shout out.
Yeah, I'd love to, yeah.
And use their name. So is there anyone that when you were thinking of specifically that you just want to give a shout out?
The teacher that I had in mind is the current teacher of 2 of my ECE classes, Miss Climby. She just won Educator of the Year for 2025, I believe.
Yeah, excellent.
My mother's name is Carla Maravalli. She owns a local business called Nonna Gina's right here in Branford.
Shout out for Nonna Gina's. I may have been there many times.
And then the swim coach I was thinking of, his name is Scott Butler. Or Mr. Butler. He's actually a math teacher here at Walsh.
So I have an interesting question that you answered based on how I framed the original question. But I was going to ask, generally speaking, does the word leader have a positive connotation or negative? And based on your answers, you all took a positive spin on it. But does it have to be positive? Can you be a leader who has negative influence?
I think that it really depends because sometimes when you hear the word leader, you could also think of people who just have power. And that doesn't necessarily always mean it's a good thing. There's some people that will kind of hold a leadership position. They might not be popular among the people that they're supposed to be leading. And it kind of could turn into something that kind of just feels like a power grab if there's a better way to explain it. Because being a leader is sometimes having power over others, and that isn't always necessarily a great thing, especially there's lots of examples of it. So
The leaders that I've had, especially in my own life, I've always kind of broke them into two categories: people who have like uplifted me and the people who I have like admired and wanted to be eventually, and then the people who I believe view power as leadership, if that makes sense. How many people they can control, what things they can control. Like Chase said, it's kind of like a power grab, almost in some cases on like bigger scales, like cash grabs. So I definitely think that, yeah, like being a leader, it all depends on you and like who you are and how you view being a leader, if you're helping the people or if your job is to serve yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And a specific example that comes to mind when I think about that is, how leadership impacts, being a captain of a sport team. I think that that's a very influential role, and I think that it could as easily be positive as it could be negative. I think that, when you see a captain of a sports team, you might think like, oh, they might be the best player of the team, they might have been there the longest, but I think that what truly embodies, a strong leader is, seeing all your teammates as individuals and equals. Like you're all on the field together, you're all playing as one. I think that trying to, like you said, instead of having that power grab mentality, to view everyone as, your teammates and your friends and just try and work well together and lead by example.
yeah, just kind of to add to your point, I was like, so I'm in no way probably the best person on the swim team, but I think so. The way that we do it for swimming is that the teammates will vote for the top three for who they would want to be senior captains. It's more about then how you perform on the field, but how you contribute to the team in the sense of community and just making everyone feel welcome and making sure you have that connection with everyone. And it's just it's a great feeling because I was elected captain for swimming, which in no way I was the best person. It kind of goes to show how much people care about those connections and feeling welcome on a sports team. So
Yeah, I like kind of going off of that. Like I do the managing for our school news, and I am kind of like the liaison between the students and the directors and everything for the fall play. And it wasn't really like a thing that was kind of voted on while the news was. It just happened that way. And I've always found that to be like kind of a sense of, well, pride, but also a sense of responsibility. Like these are people who, when something goes wrong, I get a text about it and I like am the one contacting people asking, hey, what's wrong? How can I help you? How can I support you? It's less of like being, like Juliana said, everyone is your teammate. You are just kind of there to deal with what happens when things fall out of line and get them back in line, so that way the team can keep working together, not so that you can keep having this power over everyone. So I agree with what Juliana said.
This word power has come up a few times. So power, influence, and I think there was power grab. Why does this happen? Like, what are the conditions that allow potentially a negative leader to emerge?
I think definitely when there's something on the line. I think especially senior year, there's a lot of people who want recognition for what they're doing. Especially, I don't do sports, so I can't speak for sports teams. But I see some people who are like, oh, I don't like my captain because she blah, blah, blah. And I know that because she wants this award or she wants this recognition. And I think that it's like you're going to get that recognition if you're a good leader and if you make everyone feel welcome. I'd rather personally not get that, whatever goal it is, whatever win that is, but still walk away knowing that what I did impacted the people around me in a positive way, rather than, yeah, I got this award, but I wasn't a good person to get it.
I think it also comes down to, me speaking personally on multiple sports teams, but comes down to how much pressure is on your team. I know that like captains in particular can sometimes get the brunt of, teammates fooling around or, not acting as they should. That can kind of put a lot of pressure, like I said, on the captains themselves. I think that can almost cause, a negative view to captain leaders just because they're so focused on making sure their team does well, making sure you win certain games, or you put full effort into practice, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There's definitely a balance that
I
needs to
was
kind of be
just gonna
reached.
say.
Because you can't just of course, it's important that you're on a sports team. The goal is to kind of get those wins and kind of build the team up.
Mhm.
But it's really important that you balance that with also making sure the people on the team that are putting in that work, not just you, are also feeling that same spirit. And it's not just some people feel it, some people don't, some people feel left out. It's good to make sure everyone's kind of involved in it.
Yeah, I agree. Especially I find that a lot with the news, just because we have that deadline now it's every 2 weeks, but especially last year when we were doing it, it was every week. So I know I was not some people's favorite person last year, but there was a balance between we can have fun and I'd love for this to be hilarious. And I want you to have fun and enjoy doing this and being here. We do have a deadline. It is next Thursday, or this year it's in 2 Thursdays. I love this idea. I love what you're doing. Let's be realistic about how we can make it happen.
It's great. So staying with this idea of power, sometimes people do emerge as leaders, not at all seeking power, but there's something about them where people just naturally follow them. So when you think about some standout leaders in your mind, or think about your own leadership, because you all have different leadership responsibilities, what do you think is it about you or other leaders that you've seen that kind of get this group around you that supports what you're trying to do?
I can start with that one. I definitely think that, like I said before, specifically have that captaincy role, necessarily being that best player on the team, but also maybe there's some other people on the team who necessarily don't have that role that still act as a big leader on a team. I think that when you see a person who has traits like compassion and pride and hustle, I think that people naturally tend to gravitate towards others who, put a lot of effort in. And I think that also can be just as big of a leadership role as just having that title.
Yeah, I agree with that. Again, like I had mentioned before, I kind of fell into doing all this. I think it was just because I've been around the longest. We didn't have a set really vote. It was just kind of, hey, who wants to do this? Hey, you've been around the longest, you can do it. But I had support going into it. And I like to think that it's because people rely on me even before having set titles or having stuff. People would text me saying, hey, what do I do? Or we'd have a problem come up, for example, with the news right last minute. Hey, something's not loading, something has to be cut. And pretty confidently I could say, okay, we're going to take this, we're going to cut this, you're going to go here. And if that doesn't work, I'll find a way to make it work. I know, especially the people in clubs where I don't follow, I'm not a leader, I kind of look to the people who can make those quick, fast, and effective decisions consistently to support the rest of the group.
Yeah, and I also think it comes down to some people's personalities, because some people in general have more of that confidence and have more of that leader attitude, while some people are more, I guess you could say, laid back and don't want that pressure on them. So I think that's also another thing, that some people that might just have that personality might have a different thought about if they want to be a leader or not. So I kind of think that's also a big part of, kind of similar to what you both were saying. So that's kind of another thing why I think that some leaders who could be leaders don't actually want to be leaders, but they still kind of end up being looked up to.
Yeah. I think they just without even really thinking about it, oh, I want to be a leader. Sometimes they just how you said, they just have those personality traits, and people just automatically resort to, looking at them.
Yeah, and I like how you said, especially people who have that compassion, that empathy, that, like you said, that hustle. When I see someone who, especially if I don't know what I'm doing in a certain area, but I see someone who knows what they're doing and can teach other people and problem solve, and has that, like you said, that compassion, that care for everyone else who might not know what's going on, but that's okay. They're going to teach them and we're going to figure out.
Exactly.
That is definitely.
Like for me, I just joined the field hockey team after my sophomore year going into junior year. And as soon as I got to the team, I automatically just gravitated towards people who were hustling or had positive attitudes, and just like it was just like an automatic reaction. I didn't even really think about looking for those necessarily, like, oh, who's the captain, who's this and that. Like, you just sort of watch people, especially going into a sport where I had no idea how to play. You watch people and you try to be like them, just watching what personality traits or what skills they may have. Like, you just observe.
Is there a moment that you realized you were a leader?
So sports play a major role in my life. I've always been involved in them. Leading up to high school, I worked really hard to earn, a varsity position as a freshman, and I know that's, really hard thing to do, but I think that when you take that next step and be on a team with, multiple grade levels and that sort of thing, you're encouraged to, really step up and lead by example. Our coach would always say, no matter what your resume is, so if you're a freshman, if you're a senior, if you're a junior, if you're a sophomore, you're taking a position on a team and automatically taking a position of leadership. So I think getting thrown into that, environment and situation kind of forced me to mature in a way and develop leadership skills.
Yeah. I think for me, my moment that kind of made me think about like when I wow, I was really a leader was, so I run a Facebook page called Branford Weather. And when I first created it, one of the first comments I've ever gotten from it was, "We're counting on you." And this was me in late 8th grade. And I'm like, "Ooh, why did I do this?" So it definitely kind of made me realize like this is something that people like care about. And even like now I try to make sure that like people understand what's going on. It's not just, oh, here's what's going to happen, but like, why is it happening? The comment is actually Cheryl. She's a pretty prominent member of Branford. She said the town of Branford is counting on you. So that was definitely a moment, and I was like a big like, okay. So yeah, that's what I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, like, even like through like freshman year, I'd always kind of pushed myself into leader positions without kind of realizing it. I didn't realize like people were turning to me for advice, like older upperclassmen were like, "Hey, what do we do?" And I'm just standing there like a freshman, like, I don't know where C-Wing is yet. I'm gonna figure it out though. Like, it never really dawned on me, and I do have like a specific moment. I know I said like there wasn't really a voting that we did for like the play or the news that kind of pushed me into like a position, but there was like a little like pseudo voting thing for the news. We were all just kind of like around a table kind of early last year, and Mike Martone, like the leader of it, he was talking. He's like, it's kind of hard to do like all this and keep everyone in line. Like, I need a second hand. Is there anyone here who like we can count on to do that and to fill that kind of like managerial position that's going to be able to communicate with people? And he went over what it was supposed to entail, like to be able to communicate with people, to be able to keep like the deadline, to be able to X, Y, and Z. And he was like, oh, and like just looked around, no one raised their hand. And I wanted to raise my hand so bad, but I just was like, if I raise my hand, like, I don't want people to like be like, oh, ew, you're so weird, why are you doing this? But I want to raise my hand so badly. And like, he just looked over at me and was like, I feel like you should do this. I don't know why you're not raising your hand right now. And I was like, I want to so bad. And so he was just quick, like, anyone who thinks that Lillian should do it, like, raise your hand. And every single person in that room, which was like 25 people probably, raised their hand. And I was like, okay. And I just got out my computer and we started making the script, and it's been like that ever since. But like, I think about that moment and like looking around that room and seeing every single person in that room have their hand raised and like looking at me and kind of being like, we trust you with this. So I do think about that a lot, especially when I'm like talking to people in whatever leadership thing I'm doing. I'm like, I remember like the room full of people looking at me. Like,
So there is a John Maxwell quote that people buy into the leader before they buy into the vision. And I remember this quote because I was a new principal and I was pretty young when I became a high school principal. I was 33. And like the second week of school, a teacher handed me this quote on a Post-it, which immediately I did not think was a great thing, because what she was telling me is, you have really good ideas, and I think people will actually want to do these things, but they have no idea who you are yet. They're not buying into you, so they really can't buy into the vision. And this really is relevant to what we're talking about right now, because you use the words personality. But as you're talking about personality, you're also talking about people who are empathetic as being an important part to this. So do you think this personality is one lane and skill of the leader is another thing? Or is it like this Venn diagram and in the middle is everything that it takes to be a great leader?
I think from like what I would say is that it's kind of similar to like that, like you're saying, that Venn diagram. I think there's traits of that empathy but also those traits of those skills. But when you combine the two, that's when you kind of get that balance that I was talking about before. Because it's like, I think when I think of empathy, I think more of like that aspect of, especially like, for example, a sports team, making sure everyone feels like their voice is heard and making sure everyone feels welcome. Mm-hmm. But on that like skill side is also making sure you have those traits that will get the job done, if that makes sense. Like for like kind of winning and making sure that everyone's training well and everyone's doing what they should be doing and like their role on the team. And when you combine those two, that's when you kind of get like a good leader.
Mm-hmm. I 100% agree with you there. I'm one of the co-captains for our lacrosse team at Branford, and our coaches always emphasize making sure that you're leading by example and, doing your best to, catch every pass or hustling the ground balls or that sort of thing. But I think it also comes into being able to have fun with your teammates and that nice balance of, hey, we can have fun at this point in practice, but then there's like that other section where it's like, okay, we need to focus because we have a game tomorrow, that sort of thing. Yeah. And I think that's where the Venn diagram comes in, where we have that balance of both, like Chase said. And I think that's what embodies like a true leader.
I entirely agree with that. I mean, like, I'm sure you could give countless examples. I know with like the play, it's like, yes, this is hilarious. We are laughing at rehearsal. Are having such an amazing time. We have like 3 weeks until opening night. Like, at the same time, we can do this and still there's a deadline. Like, having that compassion and like being able to enjoy, like, and have everyone get together and kind of enjoy what you're trying to achieve and enjoy the goals that you guys are working towards, but also being like, this is a goal and this is something that we are doing. Mm-hmm. So being able to keep everyone on track, but not in a malicious kind of rude sort of way, in a way that makes people excited about what you're trying to do together.
Also, to add on to that, our captains and seniors including myself, we really focused on balancing that kind of loose mindset with focusing in practice leading up to this game. Because when you get into these postseason tournaments, if you lose, you're done. So it's like, you have to prioritize winning if you want to compete and continue on. To relieve some of that pressure and like kind of nerves that we had going into the game, we focused on relaxing, taking that deep breath, kind of hearing what everyone's thoughts were, kind of, just talking about it out loud with one another, while also really focusing on, drills in practice, like our corners or passing and whatnot.
Right. I know what you mean, especially you were saying like what in those championship games, if you lose, you're done. Mm-hmm. And I think it really depends on the sport as well, because sometimes those championship games for swimming, for example, it's more individual. It depends on how you swim and if you make states, if you make SECs, and it's less of like and of course, like we make sure it's still like a team thing, because it's the no matter what place you get at these events, it still counts to the team. It's just a little different because it's like, if you don't have a great swim, but you go into SEC finals, your points still count. Or if you get into state finals, your points still count. So it's definitely a different kind of, I guess you could say, vibe than other sports, because there's not as much pressure, but it's a different kind of pressure. It's more individual, not as like a team shared. So
yeah, I agree with that. But like, again, I don't do sports. Like, I don't think in that, like, oh, it's SCCs, we gotta keep pushing to keep doing it mindset. Like, I'm in the theater mindset. So it's like, in my head, we have like the 19th, 20th, and the 22nd. Like, those are the dates you show up and you practice and you make those dates count, because there's no postseason anything. There's no like all these games or these points add up to anything else. Like, that is, you get your 3 nights, and all the work and effort that you do, like, it's gonna show.
So, how about we talked a lot about leaders, and one of the questions we talked about influence. What about an influencer, and not necessarily in the context of social media, but in all aspects, and it can be social media, but you can have a leader who is an influencer, but you can also have an influencer who might not necessarily officially be a leader. Where is like the nexus, or in the Venn diagram thought, like what lives in that space between a leader and an influencer?
I'd say probably people who are vocal and have that empathy and have that like want, but don't have like the drive or the hustle. I know you said that earlier, like the Venn diagram, imagining it as like the people that have that personality and have like that emotional aspect of it, and the people who have that skill to back this emotional need. And those two things kind of need each other in order to make a leader. But when you have people who have like that emotional like component, who are like, I want to lead, they kind of do the, I don't want to say the collateral damage occasionally, but like they're the ones that people can rely on. But if you don't have like the level head in a way to make those hard decisions and to like be able to let people down even when you don't really want to, or just to be able to make those calls, people are gonna kind of go to you, and you're gonna kind of be like a pseudo leader. But when kind of push comes to shove, they're gonna look towards someone who has also those skills. So it's like you can be an emotional leader without necessarily being a overall leader.
There's a term, it's called pre-wiring, where if you know something's coming up, like if I have a meeting that I'm running, or say that you have a show coming up, or your team has a big game coming up, that here's someone who's not a captain, who does not have a leading role, is not the production manager, but they are very influential to other people on the team anyway. Pre-wiring would be, as a leader, I'm going to go to that person ahead of our next practice or our next rehearsal and talk to them and see if I can kind of get them to help rally.
Yeah.
Do you think that's an okay thing to do, or is that not a good way to use someone with influence?
It's like a liaison kind of between like the captain and the people, because like we were saying earlier, like sometimes captains get like that negative reputation, even if they aren't negative people and they're not doing anything wrong. There's just that stressor of like, oh my God, there's something like there's a big game, or there's a like big rehearsal, or who knows what coming up, and I just like, you just subconsciously need someone to take that out on. You need someone's like, and it just happens that like the leaders oftentimes are those people. That kind of liaison in the middle is who people are going to probably talk to about that. So I think that like kind of communicating that like person, that leader, and that liaison person, you can get a kind of feel for what the team is thinking and what your thinking is, and how to make everyone happy in that situation.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to when we did the surveys about the yonder pouches and like the balcony and all that stuff, how, you know, we're kind of the representative for the student body. I mean, kind of we are. But we're not only voicing, you know, how we feel individually about these changes, but also making sure we represent this body as a whole.
Yeah.
You know, when we were getting those results, we were able to accurately represent the majority of the students and kind of, you know, group students who had similar opinions and kind of say, you know, oh, this percent of our student population thought this, or, you know, this section thought that. I think that's a really important layer of being a leader, is not just focusing on individual like need or want, but kind of looking beyond that and, you know, looking at the people around you and, you know, their opinions also, because I think that's important also.
Yeah, because like especially like what you're saying with like even with the surgeons, like because you can't expect everyone to agree with you,
Mhm.
especially when you're a leader. You can't expect that everyone's going to feel the same way on something that you do.
Yeah.
One example I could think of is for swimming. It was kind of more of a minor thing, but when we were juniors and we were trying to figure out how we set up the senior meet, I had my vision for how we should do it. One of my teammates had another vision for how we should do it. We all worked like together to kind of figure out what would be the best for all of us and how we can make it the best it could be. And it's really good to kind of combine those ideas together. Even if your teammates, they might not end up being that captain role next year, they still, it's really important to get that valuable input in from them.
Yeah, and like you were saying about like kind of us and like doing this Board of Ed representation. So I basically walked into our principal's office because I don't think I actually told them this, but and I was like, hey, I want to send out this mass survey. I know I'm kind of biting off more than I can chew here, but I told him, in quotes, you can quote me here, me, Juliana, and Chase can sit in this room and we can talk about every single problem and every single thing that we encounter or every change that's happened in this school. And we have our opinions, but we're not going to have the school's opinion. We have the opinion of the 3 people in this room. And that's kind of really important, I find, especially when doing like the Board of Ed meetings. I like find so much joy in sending like survey ideas out to like my friends and family, like Mr. Panagolius, and being like, oh, do you think that this would be smart to send like to the entire student body? So that way, even if like, let's say half of the people understand, that's half more people in this school that we understand what they're thinking, and we can now represent them.
Yeah, because every response is just another mind. Just because we
Yeah,
only have 3.
That's
right?
another person.
You get 3 people to take a survey. That doubles already how many people you already have the thoughts on.
Yeah.
Right, so you're setting up. My next question is about how you got to the table in the first place. Was you are our 3 student reps for the Board of Education. So what sparked your interest when you like heard this was an opportunity? Was it something that interested you? And at the end of the year, say it goes like perfectly as you hoped it would, what do you hope to feel that you accomplished as a rep by the end of the year?
I'll go first. I was actually really excited when I saw the email. I know it's going to sound kind of crazy, but I get excited when there's a lot of work to do. Not in like a random busy work, like fill out these papers, but like knowing that there was so many changes that were happening this year. And like I was texting friends and like friends were texting me, and people I didn't even know were texting me, DMing me over Instagram saying, hey, what are your thoughts on the underpouches? Hey, what's your thoughts on the new schedule? What are you thinking? This is what I'm thinking. Like, is there something we can do or someone we can tell about this? Because like honestly, at first, not a lot of the reactions to these changes were positive. Obviously now it's shifted now that we've like lived them. But a lot of people at first were like, I don't really like this schedule. Who do I tell about that? And I was like, I can't really give you an answer for that. But when I saw that email, I was like, all these people who are coming to me, who I'm hearing in the hallways, who have opinions, who aren't probably going to be listened to because they might either be like in a minority or even like the majority of the like opinions, which are positive. The people who make those decisions, since like we don't make them ourselves, obviously we're a bunch of students, but like the people who make those decisions for us have to understand what we're thinking and kind of our realities.
Yeah, I would agree. And I kind of had like a little bit of background. I knew Grace, Carson, and Neoma a little bit, the last year's representatives. They made sure that people's voices were heard, and I thought it was just a really good opportunity.
Yeah.
Because for us, it's like we're already seniors, and now we're able to give that voice of what we think, especially in this year when a lot of things are different from years prior. And like when I got the email, I was like, wow. I felt like I was like a part of something, and it just got me.
Yeah, responsibility.
It definitely gave like a responsibility, and I was excited for it.
I was very excited too. I thought, well, my first initial reaction was, wow, I can't believe, when they were thinking about filling these positions, that they chose me and to ask me. And I felt like a sense of pride. I was like, wow, I'm excited that they want my input.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I guess, after our first meeting, I just had a little time to, reflect on what we talked about and how everything went. And I think just like my overall goal for, my time on the Board of Education would just be to do the best I can to thoroughly represent everybody and not just think of it every question or every section as something that I'm filling out based on how I feel, more so based on how our student body feels.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Like you said, at the end of this year, if everything goes perfectly according to plan, I would hope to leave that last meeting being I have done everything in my power to make the people around me feel heard, to know that the student body is being represented and people are hearing what we have to say, especially because obviously all the things the Board of Ed do impact the students. I want even the stupid little minute things that people might not even realize, those are things that I want to bring up because those are things that happen.
It's not only just making sure you represent the student body, but also making sure that the people who are making those decisions understand what the student body thinks. It's being that bridge between, and I think it's a really just that would be my perfect, just making sure that Board of Ed members also understand what is going on in the school because they're not always there. So
yeah.
Final question. If you had a magic wand and you could change one thing about being a student/student leader in Branford, what's a change that you would make for the better?
I would like for the Board of Ed members to be stationed in the high school. It's not enough, in my opinion, for us to go to one meeting with this monthly recap. I think that if there was at least one or two Board of Ed members who every day went into the high school and saw this is what my change is doing to the students, and this is how the faculty is responding, this is how the students are responding, it's making life easier for students or it's making life harder. Going in there and living that, even for maybe a day a week or something, I feel that would probably, if I could wave my magic little wand and bibbidi bobbidi boop something into existence, it would be that.
Yeah. I think if I had my magic wand, I would try to make it so all the students of Branford High School answer the surveys that are sent out because it's really valuable information to get everyone's perspective. And sometimes, I remember hearing even at the board meetings how sometimes only 10% will actually even respond to the surveys, which is compared to how many people there really are. That's such a small return rate where it's just not enough information.
And then people are there's nothing I could have done. There's no way I could have put my input in. No, just fill out the survey.
Yeah.
You can. We do look at the responses. We do look at
I also think
numbers.
that if people paid a little bit more attention to, like the Yonder Pouch, for example, when it was in motion and when the Board of Ed was talking about it, nobody really had an input about it. Nobody really said anything or spoke up. And I can understand, having a hard time speaking up about something that wasn't in place yet.
Yeah.
But even then, at our first meeting, we didn't really have, there was so much talk about, what this was going to do to student life. But nobody really showed up to talk about it even then.
Yeah.
And I think that was a little bit shocking to me. So I feel like if I had my magic wand, I think that I would encourage people to follow through with, their opinions and actually, make that change or put your input into something you're passionate about.
I feel
and that goes in all
really
regards too, just in general, putting, effort and passion into a club or, a class or an extracurricular activity, really putting that follow through, effort and finishing what you start, I think, would be beneficial.
Juliana, Lillian, and Chase, thank you for sharing your perspectives on what it means to lead, who inspires you, and how leadership can be used to create positive change. Your voices remind us that leadership isn't about titles or positions. It's about action, empathy, and the courage to make things better for others. As we move forward through the school year, I hope you'll take a cue from our student leaders to listen deeply, act with purpose, and work together toward a shared vision for Branford's future. Thank you all for being the first guests. Thanks for joining us on this journey and for being such an important part of what makes Branford an amazing place to live, learn, and grow. You can catch new episodes of Hive Mind Headlines on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and our district website at branfordschools.org. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review to help others find the show. Let's celebrate all that makes Branford special.